The federal election wrapped up, and now there appears to be more division than ever, especially between the federal Liberals and the prairie provinces. Joining me now to discuss this is our national parliamentary reporter, Ray Filion, who joins me once again from Ottawa. First of all, Ray, welcome back.
Thanks, Hal. It's good to be back, indeed.
Ray, let's talk about the strong message Trudeau received in regards to his minority government. He failed to capture any seats in either Alberta or Saskatchewan. How can he mend those fences with many here in the prairies?
It was quite the rebuke that he suffered on Monday night, especially from a prime minister who in 2015 branded himself as a great unifier, a man who brings people together. Now, as you said, the country is more divided than ever, perhaps, with the prairies all blue, Quebec red and blue bloc, separatists are back. In Ottawa in large numbers. They went up from 10 MPs to 30. Ontario is mostly Liberal yet again. So yeah, quite the interesting scenario. Justin Trudeau held a news conference on Wednesday during which his tone was quite different than it was on Monday night. On Monday, the Liberal leader seemed like he had won another landslide, another majority government. But he was more, he had a different tone on Wednesday in his first news conference as re-elected prime minister. He said he's going to try to mend fences with the different regions of the country by reaching out. He says he's going to be in touch with people like Mr. Nenshi, the mayor of Calgary, and other Canadians to try to figure out a way to mend those fences. And what I thought was really interesting was back in 2015, he decided to form his cabinet just 2 weeks after Election Day. Now he's going to take a lot more time. He won't have his new ministers sworn in before November 20th, so in 4 weeks from now. So he's decided to take a lot of time, he says, to reflect on things. And I think, when you go from having a strong majority government like he enjoyed the last 4 years down to a minority government, you have a lot to think about.
Well, we see a lot of the familiar faces, like maybe Catherine McKenna, once again, climate change, environment. But I mean, she's been under attack quite a bit lately.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw what happened earlier this week in Ottawa. Her campaign office was spray painted with the word C in red. She reacted to that in an emotional way because it's not the first time she's been targeted. She was called by a fellow MP, if I'm not mistaken, many months ago. He labeled her a climate Barbie. Over the course of the summer, while she was out here in Ottawa at a movie theater, apparently somebody pulled up near her car and called and said, "F you, climate Barbie." She had a security detail following her everywhere. Yeah, those things shouldn't happen in politics. And I know Jagmeet Singh and other politicians reached out to her on Twitter saying, expressing their support and saying that this is something that should never happen in politics. Things have become very polarized in recent months, or certainly in recent years. There have been a lot of personal attacks by many people's accounts. This has been one of the dirtiest campaigns in Canadian history. So yeah, things should. I think we should call on people to. It's okay to be involved in politics, to be passionate about things, but let's not get personal here. Let's not get into personal attacks.
It makes for interesting times, definitely, when you're a TV journalist. Now, Ray, during the election, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh said he was open to the idea of forming a coalition with the Liberals, but Trudeau said, "Oh, no thanks, we're good." Why is Trudeau ruling out a coalition?
Well, he's ruling out a coalition, I think, because he thinks that he can govern for a few years without one. No formal coalition means nobody from the NDP, for example, or any other party will be invited to sit in the Liberal cabinet for the next few years. And I think we're going to see this government being able to govern for more than just a few months because the NDP, they're broke right now. They barely had enough money to run the last campaign. And you saw that Jagmeet Singh didn't have a plane for a large part of that election campaign. He was campaigning by bus. So they're in no rush to trigger an election. I think that Mr. Trudeau can get along with some of the opposition parties. He can work with the Bloc. He can work with the NDP on environmental issues. He can work with the Conservatives to achieve things like the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion. As a matter of fact, he said that's one of his priorities, TMX. So we're probably going to be speculating a lot as to whether or not we'll have an election sooner rather than later. But I get the feeling today that it's not going to happen anytime soon unless opinion polls start to show that Justin Trudeau could recapture his majority. In that event, he would probably be tempted to trigger his own defeat to have an election. But unless that happens, I don't. I think we're going to have a minority government for some time to come. And let's not forget, Hal, that the last two minority governments under Stephen Harper, they lasted 2.5 years each. So I don't think we're going to have another election anytime soon. But as you know, in politics, things can turn on a dime.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of the Tories, Conservative leader Andrew Scheer said he is staying on as leader, but Ray, will he be able to? Are there rumblings perhaps to maybe Peter MacKay from the Harper cabinet from a few years ago, maybe making a comeback? How about Rona Ambrose?
Yeah, there are rumblings behind the scenes. Of course, a lot of Tories are disappointed that Mr. Scheer didn't win a government because many Tories in his entourage thought on election day that it was possible, that they were going to pull it off. They didn't. And of course, Mr. Scheer can go around all he wants saying, we increased our seat count. We have an extra 20, 25 MPs. We got more votes than the Liberals. But at the end of the day, that's not what matters. You need more seats than any other party in order to be able to form government. And of course, that was a failure on the part of Mr. Scheer's team. And there have been a lot of rumblings. I've been on the phone the past 2 or 3 days talking to many MPs, especially here in Ontario and in Quebec, and a lot of people are unhappy. A lot of people think that there should be a new leader. In Quebec, they're very unhappy with the way Mr. Scheer managed the whole abortion debate. They think that his reputation is done for in that province. He'll never be able to win a sizable, more than a dozen seats. He won 10 in Quebec in the last election. So some people are urging for calm. They're saying, let's take a deep breath. Let's assess what went wrong here. Andrew Scheer is a good leader. We should seriously consider keeping him as leader. But there are a lot of people who think it's too late. He should have won this election. Given the fact that Justin Trudeau was weakened following blackface, so many controversies like the trip to India, SNC-Lavalin, it was really Mr. Scheer's campaign to lose, and he lost it, unfortunately for him. So we'll see what happens. He's going to have to undergo a leadership review this coming April at the next Conservative Party convention. In the meantime, he's going to have to face members of his own caucus. I was told today that meeting is likely to occur in 2 weeks' time on November 6th. So let's see what happens now. The one thing playing in his favor is the fact that we have a minority government. As I said, the election could take place anytime. If there's a leadership race, some Tories speculate that Mr. Trudeau might be tempted to trigger his own defeat to have an election ASAP. But, it's far from guaranteed that Mr. Scheer will be leading the Tories in the next election.
And what's interesting too is the amount of money in the Tory coffers compared to the Liberals and the NDP. The Tories have a lot of money, so trigger another election maybe 6 months or a year from now, and they could probably afford it. Now, Ray, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is also staying, but how can he, going from 35 seats in 2015 down to just 24 this time around? Wouldn't many people consider that a failure?
Well, yeah, they lost 20 seats. They lost a lot of votes when you compare their vote count to 2015. But the thing is, a lot of New Democrats thought that the party was facing annihilation. Things were going so badly for the NDP going into this election. The fact that they were able to save more than half of their seats is a big victory, which is why you saw Jagmeet Singh dancing on stage on Monday night in Vancouver before he gave his speech. He almost looked like he had just won a majority government, which is, of course, not what happened. But I haven't heard any rumblings on the NDP side over the past few days, and I've made phone calls as well. I haven't heard anyone openly calling for the leader's head. It looks like Jagmeet Singh is going to get another kick of the can whenever the next election comes. That being said, as I said, I don't think any New Democrat is looking for another election. I think that they're going to be working with Justin Trudeau's government. And let's not forget that Jack Layton, he had, I think, 3 campaigns before the Orange Wave in 2011. So I think he's going to get another kick of the can. Nobody is looking to replace him. He also ran a good campaign. Finally his personality came through. A lot of people liked what they saw in Jagmeet Singh. He was, I think, the big surprise of this campaign. He became leader in October 2017, and for almost the first 2 years, he came across as a weak leader. While during the campaign, he came across as a strong leader. He seemed to be in good control of his files. He knew what he was talking about. So I think he's going to get another kick of the can.
Ray, let's discuss the People's Party of Canada, which failed to win any seats, including the party's leader, Maxime Bernier. Will the party even be around in a year?
Well, Maxime Bernier wouldn't answer that question, but he simply said that he's going to think about it. I don't foresee a good future for the People's Party of Canada. They, as you said, they failed to capture a single seat, which means in the next election campaign, Mr. Bernier will likely not be invited to any of the leaders' televised debates. I think it's probably the end of the road here for the PPC. It's really become a fringe party, and I really don't see a bright future for that party. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. But Mr. Bernier is going on vacation, from what I understand, and he's going to be thinking about his political future and that of his party for the next few weeks.
Now let's read between the lines here of why the Bloc Québécois captured so many seats in Quebec. Ray, are Quebecers thinking of another referendum and a potential separation from Canada?
I don't think so. I think a lot of people in Quebec were disappointed in what they saw from Mr. Trudeau in the last 4 years. They were looking for an alternative. They didn't find Mr. Scheer inspiring. He scared a lot of people off with the whole debate on abortion that we had during the campaign. He said he wasn't going to reopen that, but he wouldn't answer for weeks. He wouldn't answer questions as to whether he's pro-life, pro-choice. So people didn't find any inspiration either in Mr. Singh. So they went back to their old reflex of voting for the Bloc, which is a party that stands to defend Quebec's interest. And the Bloc leader, Mr. Blanchet, also did a smart thing during the campaign. He decided to defend and promote the ideas that are being promoted by the most popular politician in Quebec right now, François Legault, the Premier of Quebec. He's got 60-70% approval rating. He's the most popular politician in the province of Quebec. He basically ran on his coattail, and it worked for him. So I don't think by any means that Quebecers have become more separatist by electing so many MPs. I don't think that the Bloc is coming back here in Ottawa in large numbers to promote sovereignty. I think that should there be another referendum in Quebec on independence, it's the PQ that's going to trigger that. And the PQ is nowhere near government right now. As a matter of fact, they're the fourth political party in the Quebec legislature. So it doesn't look like sovereignty is a thing again, in spite of what we saw on Monday night.
We're hearing a lot of separatist talk as well as right here in Alberta. I mean, tens of thousands of people joining Facebook pages, over 100, 150, 200,000 people. I mean, it's rampant right now, Ray. There's that huge disconnect, and a lot here in the West are feeling alienated from Ottawa. So what is Trudeau going to do to really set a lot of the mindsets of people out here in the West?
Yeah, Wexit seems to be more of a thing than Quebec separation rearing its head again. As I said, he's going to be reaching out to people in Alberta. He wants to speak to mayors, premiers. He's reaching out, we're told, to conservative politicians. He attacked on a daily basis during the campaign. Politicians like Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, the Premier of Alberta, Mr. Kenney. And I thought that was remarkable on the part of Mr. Trudeau to attack so many people during the campaign. As I said earlier, he branded himself as a person who unites Canadians in 2015. And he basically invited people in Ontario and Quebec to elect as many Liberal MPs they could to stand up to politicians like Doug Ford and Mr. Kenney, and also the oil industry. So that was really a total change of tone for Mr. Trudeau in the last few weeks. Quite amazing to hear. And now, obviously, as we said earlier, he's got to mend fences with all those people and people in the West.
Trudeau also raised a few eyebrows recently when he began his speech while Andrew Scheer was speaking on election night. Tell me more about that.
I've never seen anything like this, quite frankly. At some point on election night, we had three leaders, Jagmeet Singh, Andrew Scheer, and Justin Trudeau, speaking at the same time, giving their election night speeches. Mr. Singh was the first to speak. He spoke for a good 20, 25 minutes. Andrew Scheer came on stage in Regina, and within minutes, you had Mr. Trudeau appearing on stage in Montreal to deliver his speech. So a lot of people never heard Andrew Scheer's speech because most of the networks cut to the re-elected prime minister. Apparently, we're told by conservatives that the congratulatory phone call that Mr. Scheer extended to Justin Trudeau was very nice, but I heard that some liberals were rubbed the wrong way by Mr. Scheer's people, who kept calling the Liberal leader's office saying the congratulatory phone call is going to come in 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And it kept being delayed. So that, I'm told, could be one of the reasons why Mr. Trudeau said, you know what, Andrew Scheer is still speaking. I'm going to give my speech now because I'm ready.
Should make for some fun times on Parliament Hill, especially with that minority government. Let's see if they can play along well together. Our parliamentary reporter, Ray Filion, joining me once again from Ottawa. Thanks so much, Ray.
You're welcome, Hal.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless, and thanks for watching.